Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Walk in My Shoes webinar series for professional advisors. This series is for anyone interested in learning more about philanthropy, social investment and impact. My name is Zofia Sahanek and I'm the Director of Membership and Development at Philanthropy Impact. We are here to give insight into the rapidly evolving space and to support you in advising your clients around their philanthropy, social investment and impact journeys. Today, we are coming together to discuss enriching the role of professional advisors digitally, exploring ways technology can support philanthropists and social investors on their journey to do good with their wealth. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our chair for today, Darshita Gillies, founder and CEO of March. And joining Darshi today, we welcome Marcel Speller, OBE, founder and chairman of Brevio, Louise Downing, founder of BizGive, and John Spears, chairman of EQ Investors. As this is a strictly 30-minute session, we ask that you use the chat function only to pose your questions and interact with each other and the panelists. If we are unable, we will answer your questions on LinkedIn. So join us on LinkedIn. There'll be a link in the chat for that. You can pose questions there for the panelists and they will try to answer them. If you have any more questions for me, you'll find me in the chat, and I will now pass over to Darshi to make a start. Thank you, Darshi.
Thanks, Sophia, and welcome everyone to another Walk in My Shoes series. Personally, I found each of these really meaningful, and also the shortness of time ensures that we get most out of the conversation. So without further ado, maybe before we kick off this panel conversation, I'll just share a little bit about me and my journey. And I'm going to invite also my fellow panelists here to follow a similar structure as to our individual journeys and how they've led us to philanthropy, and at the same time, how can we partner and collaborate with the professional advisors in ensuring that we enable a much more effective philanthropy sector overall. I started my journey in Mumbai in India. I say my journey is from the bottom 1% to the top 1% for 100% of the planet. And what I mean by that is I know what it's like to live in the bottom 1% with very little access to resources. And there were days where we didn't even have food at home. And I know the value and the importance of philanthropy and how that has meaningfully shaped my life. I'm very much a product of philanthropy in terms of the education I've had and the opportunities that opened up because people invested in my learning opportunities. And long story swift, after a career in banking and investment banking in particular, I became really interested in looking at how do we allocate finance in the most meaningful way in society. And when the SDGs were released and announced in 2015, I felt it was a gateway to really bring the whole global community together around a single vision of what is framework to really mobilize capital and other resources to achieve that shared vision of a future that we want. And in that journey, I realized also the importance of technology. And what we do at Munch, I started Munch 2 years ago, which is a technological platform to enable mobilization of resources to achieve the SDGs. And one of the things I started to learn was the role technology is going to play in ensuring that that we are able to do what we most want to do in the most effective way. And I think what we also started to learn through this journey is that it's not going to be one single organization that is going to make that big difference. It's not going to be just like a Google or a Facebook. It's going to require careful curation and multiple collaboration between and among industry players to enable and achieve that larger vision. And so for this purpose, I'm really delighted that we have three varied solutions in the philanthropy sector to be able to share with us, again, their own journeys, but also more practically share how philanthropy, how professional advisors can really engage with these technologies, as well as participate in giving much needed feedback to these technologies so they can be adopted by the wider market. So I'm going to use this opportunity, Marcel, maybe to kickstart this conversation with you. If you don't mind going through the same process of your own journey and sharing a little bit more about Revio and how professional advisors can interact with Revio and your teams. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Happy to, Dasha. Thank you very much. Okay, I started a long time ago in big corporate jobs in marketing and pan-European marketing and advertising for people like Heineken, American Express, and all the rest of it. And I got very bored with the corporate world. I've lost my Q-tip. Sorry, I hope that didn't deafen you. I did quite a bit of disrupting there, but then I got fed up with the corporate world, and way back in end of 1995 set up something called holidayrentals.com, which was the first European site for online rentals. You'll probably know it now as HomeAway, which is part of the Expedia group. Worked on that 24/7 for 9 years, very early days of the internet. Really doing some disrupting there in terms of the first time that vacation holiday home rentals were done on the internet rather than through videos or magazines. When we sold that in 2005, I wanted to do something, and that's actually when I first got in touch with a wealth manager, because I didn't have enough wealth before then, but I did at that point. And I have to say that the people that I spoke to were very, very helpful in terms of pointing me in the right direction. And the direction they actually pointed me in was the philanthropy workshop. From part of TPW, which was now called TPW Philanthropy Workshop. The most amazing, I wouldn't have known about it if it hadn't been for my bank, my private bank, telling me about it. And it's an amazing course. I can't tell you the change it made, but the main change it made me realize wherever we went, which was London, Vietnam, and New York, over a 9-month period, 3 weeks over 9 months, the people that really inspired me were local charities, people on the ground delivering the services, not just flying in and flying out. And so that's what made me set up local giving, because I realized coming back to the UK that the problem, it was in 2008 at this point, financial crisis, unregistered charities couldn't use the online platforms, they weren't getting gift aid, and a lot of people wanted to support their local area and they didn't know where to find charities in the local area. So that was an amazing experience. I did that for 9 years. And I think altogether now they have raised well over £30 million in £5 and £10 donations. We did match funds and various things like that, and helped about 6,000 charities. And way back in the day, we had to actually teach people how to use the internet. It's no good giving someone a webinar like this if they don't know how to use the internet. So we did a lot of training and corporate, capacity building. So I decided to hand that over when I done it for 9 years, and it's now sustainable, which is what I aim to do, which I think that's what philanthropists have to do. You've got to take the risks and build something and then make it sustainable and hand it over. While I was at local giving, I thought, grants were going to go away in 2008, and I came to the realization that actually they hadn't gone away, they just got a lot more competitive. And so I looked at the situation, and we found out that the charity said to us, local giving is great, but these application forms, we're spending all our time doing application forms. So I actually did some research with the University of Bath. I live down in Somerset now, and we actually worked out that the average charity does something like 26 grant applications every year. They take about up to 19 hours each. They spend £1.1 billion a year writing grant applications, and 66% of them fail. So that's 750 odd million that's totally wasted. And I just decided I wanted to do something about that. And that's why I set up Revio, because basically what we're doing is we've put together a platform which I targeted originally at major grant makers, and they helped us build it, and charities, where basically the charities put down their details, and that's where the data is, the data of what the charity can do. It's a very comprehensive application form, but they fill it in once. And then similarly, a funder goes onto the site and specifies their criteria, and we just give them a short list. Okay, that's what you're looking for. These are the people that do it. And then it's over to them. We're not going to get in the way of actually deciding which ones to grant to, doing the due diligence, visiting them, which a lot of philanthropists want to do. And I always visited the places that I that I support, and actually then do the actual grant making. And that's, I think, something that wealth managers can help with, to actually point people. They can use Brevio to point if they know that their clients are interested in a particular area or a particular issue, then we can give them a short list of the charities that maybe they should go and look at to make this, to give that giving, and maybe find things that are under the radar that they haven't seen before. So that's what Brevio is doing. And I'll stop about Brevio at the moment.
Thank you, Marcel. Is there anything you'd like to add about how advisors could engage with Brevio?
Well, I think what they can do is that, I think we're putting together some stuff because we're now focusing Brevio. We've done the stuff for major grant making, but they're all so busy at the moment and change is difficult for them. But I think there's a lot of philanthropists that there's a lot of people that want to be philanthropists, and there's people are at different stages in their philanthropy. And I think wealth managers have to recognize that. Is this somebody who's totally new and doesn't know what to do? In which case, point them in the direction of philanthropy workshop, or they might say, okay, I want to help, I'm a little bit further down, I want to help that sort of person, and then go to something like MPC and see where, okay, if you want to look at people in Manchester, actually homelessness is an issue in Manchester, go to MPC. And then the next stage is when they've got that far, then go on to Brevio and look at, okay, so homelessness is a problem in Manchester. That's when the wealth manager can say, okay, that's what you want to do. Let's go on to Brevio and we'll specify that and we'll see who is handling homelessness in Manchester. And I think if wealth managers ask the right questions, they can find what their clients are looking for. And I'm totally for collaboration as well, Dasha. I can't do this single-handed. I'm liaising with with MPC, with 360 Giving. I wish somebody would actually work out impact. I know John's been talking about that. I can't do that yet, monitoring and evaluation, but that's my bit, is to actually give people the short list of what charities are out there doing what they can do, what they want to do.
Thank you, Marcel. That's very helpful. Louise, let's move on to you. And if you could share again with brevity and depth a little bit more on your journey with BizGive, and also through your lens of how wealth advisors especially can link with technologies and engage their younger audiences.
Sure, thanks, Dashita. So from my perspective, I spent 7 years as a sustainability climate change reporter and analyst for Bloomberg and Bloomberg New Energy Finance. And it was during my time there that I noticed that as I was writing these fantastic stories about what corporates were doing in terms of giving, philanthropy and sustainability, that they were missing a huge opportunity to really leverage these initiatives to more deeply engage and emotionally connect with their stakeholders, whether that's employees, consumers, and clients. And my view is that this engagement is really crucial for the industry in driving awareness among, for example, a company's followers of charities, and particularly smaller charities, and getting consumers and employees really engaged in what they're doing to drive that virtuous giving cycle. So BizGive actually started life with a very strong focus on facilitating this engagement piece of the puzzle. And we spent a good year to 18 months developing pieces of technology that we tested and trialed with a number of companies, including Pucker Herbs, which is now owned by Unilever. And it was through this work that we really started to notice that actually corporates had a huge number of issues purely in administrating their giving before they could even think about the dream scenario of really engaging their stakeholders in it. So we spent another 18 months working very closely with a number of international and UK companies and charities to really understand what these challenges and problems are. So by way of example, some of our own data shows that many of the biggest companies in the UK and indeed abroad spend a fifth to a quarter of their annual donation budget purely on administering their giving. So by that I mean the application process, the due diligence, the sharing of impact, communications, etc. For SMEs, it can be as much as a third. And for external research actually also supports this, showing that in the UK, nearly half of CSR managers aren't giving where and how they want to give because of the administrative burden on their teams. So with that in mind, we, as I mentioned, took a really user-led design and development approach to the technology that we now have, and which we released in May. The first version of our technology aims to address this end-to-end workflow, so enabling corporates to discover charities, charities to discover corporates, to manage the due diligence process, to share content, to share impact, and indeed to manage communications in one place. So the status now is that released end of May, it's being used by a number of companies and charities over the summer. We're now working with some much larger corporates to develop the next stage of the platform, focusing on really evolving it now to add the impact side of the equation, and also the engagement tools. So how can companies really leverage all this good work that they're doing to better engage their stakeholders? So to give you a quick example, we developed a year or so ago now a machine learning tool that can take a company's or any organization's Twitter followers, for example, and scan the narrative, the things people are talking about, and also their images, and match them to some really niche charitable themes. And that gives companies an idea of how their stakeholders' charitable affinities can change and grow over time and in relation to external events, which in turn can help guide the company's giving strategy and how they also market and share their giving to engage their consumers. So in terms of engaging young donors, I think what's very evident without exception is that all the companies that we work with and have collaborated with clearly recognise that the younger generation really want to know about what they're doing in sustainability, and that it's really fertile area for customer engagement. Looking at what engagement actually is, you know, for us it's relevancy, so it's having an emotional connection to something, or a connection driven by values, and then it's the transparency and the ongoing, you know, the frequent contacts that you have with an entity. So it's understanding how your contribution has made a difference and how that's evolved a charity to make an impact. So in terms of, you know, our corporates equipped to deal with that, you know, my answer to that would be no at the moment. It's a huge, huge undertaking. So not only do corporates have a huge range of stakeholders, all those stakeholders care about very different things, they have very different values, and they change significantly over time and against external events. Understanding what these stakeholders care about and how that changes is one challenge. Capturing, curating, formatting, delivering content to engage those stakeholders is another problem. And monitoring and tracking the engagement itself in the content and the imagery, etc., that you're sharing is another huge problem. And while there are a number of platforms that support various parts of this workflow, so social listening tools, for example, they typically sit outside of the charity, the philanthropy sector. So yeah, that would be my answer to you in terms of young people being engaged. I think it's very difficult for any corporate or any foundation.
Thanks, Louise. That's very insightful, and I'm afraid we are short of time, so I'm going to move the conversation to John. But if there are any questions, maybe we'll bring you back up. John, I think you have a very unique perception also on the sector, in part also because you engage through your investment organization also with multitude of stakeholders, and you yourself set up a vehicle to really boost effective philanthropy, especially in the UK. If you can share your journey and then specific relevance with philanthropy, and also how did you come about really finding that, what's your sense of what's really needed in the UK philanthropy sector to move it forward, and what role can wealth advisors play?
Thanks, Darshi. Yes, as you say, I mean, I kind of sit on both sides of this fence. I spent most of my career in wealth management and still run a business there today. But really, I'm spending most of my time on trying to make it easier to pick highly effective charities and then to follow what they're doing. And I guess, you know, from this point of view, my journey starts a couple of years ago when I reflected on the grants I'd made through the two foundations that I run, and realized that the vast majority of them I'd made on a reactive basis. Somebody had mentioned a charity to me, I'd met them, done a bit of work on them, liked it, and I thought, hey, you know, why don't I go out there and try and find some stuff myself? And I immediately found how extraordinarily difficult that was in the UK, with almost 200,000 registered charities, and the various search engines that were around were virtually impenetrable in terms of getting towards some meaningful information. And then I had a kind of, you know, what seemed to me to be a bit of an insight on a flight one day, and I thought, well, you know, with my investment background, if I was trying to find a few stocks to buy, and I either didn't know how to go about it or I was short of time, the shortcut is you look and see, well, what are the top investment managers buying? And if you can find a few of them buying the same stock, you know, that's telling you something. You know, it helps to narrow your search down. And because in the UK, through an organization called 360 Giving, a lot of the information around grants made by the big grant makers, the professionals like Comic Relief, Esme Fairbairn, and so on, is now publicly available. I could see that I could marry up that data with the Charities Commission data, and then I could say, well, hey, Choker, show me charities dealing with homelessness that have already got maybe 5 really top grant makers backing them. And hey, presto, that immediately narrowed my search down. So you know, that became useful. And we built this website called Giving is Great, which is, you know, operational today and is free to use for everybody. We then started looking a bit further and realizing there's quite a lot of other data lying around out there, but you have to kind of go to different places to find it. So what we've been trying to do is to aggregate quite a lot of this. Charity Base have been doing some excellent work at, for instance, at getting the social media handles and some deeper information about trustees. And this is an ongoing project. You know, it literally pretty much every day we're able to enhance something so that we've got a much more meaningful search experience, so that you can find charities. And we've got the whole, you know, say the whole registered charity base from the UK on there, because I know that every one of us has a completely different idea about what we want to support. So I didn't want to narrow it down and just say, we're only going to look at my 10 favorite charities, although we do also do that. So we've done that, and the next sort of phase of that is, as Marcel has alluded to, is to try to bring in impact data, because this is the holy grail. In order to really find the most effective charities, we want to home in on what are they actually achieving. You know, we're not very interested in their admin costs or how much the chief exec gets paid. These aren't the sort of things you look at when you're trying to buy stocks. So we're looking at impact, and you know, we haven't got there yet. We've managed to do it fairly effectively on a very small number of charities, and we're working. And again, this is all about collaboration. Totally agree with that. So we're working with some of the other people in this space to see what we can do together. And again, it'll all be openly available to everybody if we can find a way that works. And finally, I think with my background in wealth management, it seemed to me that, you know, there's the first thing is the selecting the charities. But then my own experience very much afterwards was a gradual onset of buyer's remorse. You know, I've backed these guys, they seem very nice. Are they really achieving anything? You know, I didn't have that deep ongoing connection. And, you know, I mean, obviously they offer many chances for significant donors to go and see things, but I lacked tangible data, and I lacked the kind of statement that we're all used to getting in our financial world these days to show you, oh, what have I done last year? You know, what did we achieve? And so we've been spending quite a lot of time to build that kind of impact report. And again, that is up there on Giving is Great, and people can go and try that and just either put your own data in or put dummy data in. You just start to get a look of how it looks. It's pretty crude at the moment. It's not going to win any prizes, but I can tell you that for me personally, that I know is what I want to see. I want to look back each year and have a look and say, I gave that charity X thousand pounds. What have they done with it? Oh, they did that. Wow, that sounds great. I'm definitely going to give them some more this year. Or those guys, that doesn't feel quite as much as I would have liked. Maybe I want to reconsider backing them again this year and find somebody else who maybe is doing a better job. It's the kind of debate I want to have going on.
Thank you, John. That's helpful. And just one question before I pass back to the other John here. What's your sense of what is the best way in which wealth advisors can engage from your perspective, with their clients on how to engage on philanthropy, but through the digital lens?
I think, on the wealth management side, it's very difficult because on the one hand, you've got every client will have something different that tugs their heartstrings. Different levels of knowledge, so and from the wealth manager's point of view, this is sort of this is typically a kind of a bit of bumps on top of the normal service. It's hard to charge for this extra advice. It's a client loyalty sort of program. I think for the mega givers, you normally will not to go and appoint a philanthropy advisor who will put together a specific proposition for you. But for the people for whom, that may not be a cost-effective solution, then it's probably much more about trying to find out what they really, the areas that really interest them, and then putting together a small portfolio of, I would say, really interesting charities, not the big names, because everybody's heard about them. It's the hidden gems. And then the clients hopefully will take a real interest in that because they won't have heard of them before, and they'll find out more about them and they'll get excited. And then they want to keep on giving. And that's what we all want to see here, is we want to see a lot more giving happening and a lot more satisfaction coming from that giving.
Darcy, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut in.
Yeah, I was just going to pass into you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. There's so many questions I have and so little time left about due diligence, impact reporting, connections between the different approaches and all that kind of stuff. So this has been a really good start and what I see as a taster. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably have a longer session later this year on this topic where we could go into it in more depth. But could you, each of you, give me 30 seconds, max 30 seconds, final words of wisdom? So who would like to go first? Louise.
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say in terms of digital transformation, one thing we need to be really aware of is that it's 10% technology, 90% people.
Okay.
And technology is only as good as the people that use it and how we teach them.
Okay, thank you. John.
Yeah, keep talking to everybody. I think we're in the foothills here of a revolution, and we need everybody pulling broadly in the same direction to help us get to the top.
Okay, Marcel.
I would agree with what John says, that we've all got to realize that technology has affected every aspect of our lives, and it's going to affect philanthropy, and we better jolly well be ready for it and be part of it.
Thank you. And Darcy, your final words?
Yeah, I just feel like technology does not exist to replace human decision making, but to augment the human decision making capacity. So let's have that sort of healthy balance as we move forward together.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much, all. That was really great. Sophia.
Yeah, thank you. Just echo John there again. It was really great. We've had some interesting stuff come through on the chat. One of them was to connect with you, so I've put your websites up there so people can connect with you directly, or they can reach through us. But if you're happy to, or through LinkedIn. Next week, please join us again. We're going to be looking at art, philanthropy, and social entrepreneurialism. I can't say that word. Entrepreneurialism, and the connections between the two. And that unfortunately isn't on a Monday, it's on a Tuesday this time, so please be aware the change in day. It's Tuesday the 15th of September at 4 p.m. Thank you all for joining us, and I will say goodbye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.